You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
What's going on, Commanders Nation? It is Anthony Armstrong here on Believe in Commanders with my man Brian Murphy. It's Monday, October the 10th. Just coming off of a loss, tough loss. But Brian, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I mean, this is our fourth straight loss podcast, so I'm ready to turn that around. Quick chance to do it on Thursday, but all things considered, I'm all right.
Definitely a quick turnaround. And one thing, like I said, we were chatting before. I was like, man, I was like, as a former player, I'm noticing the fans take the losses a lot worse and much differently than the players do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said it the other day. Fans stand for fanatics. So, I mean, the people live, breathe, die by this team. And yeah, I think fans are frustrated. I think we'll get into all of that. You know what I'm frustrated by is that my picks are still really bad. And I don't even need to tally them up because I know that I didn't do well. I watched the games. I watched them all. But anyway, if you want to get your picks in, we'll do our pick and preview podcast tomorrow. Got a quick turnaround with the Thursday night game. But don't forget to go to betonline.ag. They're the best place to go. And remember that football is back, and we are into week 5 now. Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB playoffs. The NBA is coming back soon. Obviously, NFL, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. I think they've got esports on there. You can bet on everything there. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure you use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. And BetOnline, that's where the game starts.
That is where the game starts. It pains me to say, I was like, I hope that you took my Cowboys to cover pick, because that definitely happened. But if you went with the whole parlay and you went with all of Armstrong's picks, and Washington would have let you down. So let's just get that out the way now, right? Eat the frog, get the big nasty thing out of the way. The Commanders take a tough loss, went right down to the wire against the Titans. What were your just first flash thoughts of the game? If you had to give it a couple of sentences, what would you say?
Well, I thought that the defense played well. I think that there were a couple of big plays, but other than that, I thought they played really well. They got after Ryan Tannehill. I think they had 5 sacks, and I think they were kind of making him a little flustered all game long. Derrick Henry was Derrick Henry, and then it was nice to see De'Ami Brown step up, and all of that kind of took a back seat to Brian Robinson being out there. I think that it was incredible to see him out there. The Commanders didn't run the ball a whole lot, but he led you in rushing with 22 yards, and he could have had -5 yards, and I still would have thought it was incredible. So to see him out there was amazing. The last guy out of the tunnel, pretty awesome, seeing the shots and videos of that. So there were some positives, but at the end of the day, you drop to 1-4. There's not a whole lot to be too happy about.
Yeah, definitely not the direction you want to be going, especially the way this NFC East is trending.
Yeah.
I mean, every other team in the division gets a W. Washington adds to that L column. All the things you pointed out were all very real. Defense did play pretty well. It was good to hear that the defensive line was getting after the quarterback, and it sounded like they kind of got into my recipe book a little bit, hit a couple big plays to De'Ami Brown. I was loving that he was making an impact in the passing game. Scott Turner moved back up to the booth. And when De'Ami had that first touchdown, I was thinking that it had to be something that he was able to see up in the booth. And just briefly comparing the two, locations, in the booth, it's calm. It's going to always be the same, temperature. And sure, people get heated.
Unless you're Ken Dorsey.
Unless you're Ken Dorsey, Lord have mercy. He was struggling trying to break that tablet. But on the flip side, on the sideline, you're impacted by the emotions. And I think that being in both spots, he had to go back to what was comfortable. I'm sure he saw something and was able to, capitalize on that by calling that deep play. But Robinson being back was loved to see that, love to hear that. But going back to Scott Turner, I'm upset with the amount of times that the running game was utilized. Just to see the numbers, I'm like, you can't go out there and just try to make this a passing game just because their secondary gives up some passing yards.
Right.
So it takes away from the balance. You need to have some balance in your offense. But the biggest takeaway for me is just if it seemed as if it was just yet another way to find another way to lose. And this time it comes down to some of the decisions with the clock and timeouts and, in game moments. Like those decisions I feel cost this team the game.
I agree. And on that last drive, there was kind of an emotional challenge by Ron Rivera. Cam Sims made an excellent diving effort. Ball just moved around a tiny bit. And you could see on the replay that it was obviously not a catch. I mean, I think everybody knew that. And so that was frustrating that he even spent the challenge there, knowing that you're going to lose a timeout on your final drive. And of course, it comes down, fast forward, it comes down to you got 4 plays in about a 15-second span. You'd like to be able to use the entire field, but you obviously can't, not being able to stop the clock. So that was frustrating. It felt like an emotional, like, what were you thinking there kind of challenge. And then earlier, I think in the drive as well, he used the time. It was kind of like, okay, either get up to the ball and go or use a timeout. You don't kind of get up there, think about it, and then use a timeout. Those seconds are precious. It just felt like Ron Rivera made some questionable calls all day. It felt like another game in which the coaching staff kind of got outmaneuvered a little bit. And we're sitting here talking totally different if Carson Wentz is able to find the end zone on that last play. But when you're at 1-4, everything's up for question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, I've given, a lot of leeway and say, hey, injuries. I mean, eventually we got to get past that. I mean, everybody's hurt at some point, but I know one big injury that really I feel affected the team. Jahan was being out. And since he's been such a huge impact player in the red zone, I feel like he would have probably been the guy that they would have been looking for on that final play. But hey, those things happen.
And Logan Thomas, who's one of your few big body guys, was not out there. He was a late scratch before the game. So injuries certainly are a part, but I can't get behind that as an excuse anymore. When we started the day with the London game, the Giants are out there without their top 3 receivers. Shepard was already done for the season. Galladay and Tony didn't even make the trip, and somehow Daniel Jones is able to get the ball to a couple of different guys and get a big win against the Packers. So injuries are going to affect every team. So I can't, I agree with you. You can't call that a reason anymore. You got to step it up, and you got to play with the guys that you have available.
Yeah, it's the truth. I mean, you can circle a few teams, especially in this division, where you say, man, the coaching is really something that's helped elevate this team. And it's. I mean, hey, I saw somebody tweeted that last year or however many years ago it was when Jay Gruden was 1-4. That's when they had let him go. And I personally, I think Ron is good for the organization. I think he's good for the players. I think he has the right character and has the right values that you want, especially amid everything that the organization has just went through over the past, 3 years. Right. So, I mean, name change, the whole new rebrand, and then also, the workplace environment situations and all of that. I mean, to be real, he's handled that situation admirably. Mm-hmm. You got to give credit. Unfortunately, the results that have to come with that position need to be on the field. So, so maybe he's the guy that needs to steer the ship, on to keep it steady on that side. And you brought it up. You texted me. You talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying not to speak out of frustration, but I think that yesterday for me was not the final straw. I mean, the fan in me wants to think that they can reel off 12 straight wins and finish 13-4, right? I think that's what everybody is hoping for. But the reality is you're already out of the division race. You're losing to teams that you could probably beat with a lot of tough teams still remaining. And And it just seems like the game is kind of passing Ron Rivera by a little bit. It looks like just kind of, they haven't adjusted well. It's when other teams kind of zig and then find a way to zag. We're still zigging and trying to keep zigging, hoping that it'll work out. And it made me wonder, would he be best suited by moving to a front office role? You don't have to fire him. You don't have to do anything but you can almost turn it into a promotion. It's similar to kind of what the Celtics just did. They moved, what's his name? Brad Stevens up to the front office, and then brought in a new coach. Can you do that potentially? Can you allow Ron Rivera to still be a huge part of this organization, continue to change the culture, continue to have an impact on decisions that are made by not just the football team, but by the entire organization, and at the same time get a young mind in there that could potentially turn this thing around? I don't know that it helps you with this season, but I certainly think that could and should be the move moving forward. And it stinks to say that because Ron Rivera is an incredible guy. It's just when you're starting from behind. I mean, within 4 months of him starting the job, they decide they're going to change the name. And then he has to deal with cancer. I mean, the guy has just been put up with everything. I just don't know that he's still got it when it comes to coaching the X's and O's on a week-to-week basis. It's sad, but it might be the truth.
Yeah, and that is a lot. That's a lot for one man to have to, undertake. And people say, well, that comes with the position. Baby, look, there's no other team in the NFL that has had to go through what Coach Ron Rivera has gone through. So you have to give the man respect for that.
Right.
And I've thought about these things, just how you see coaches rotating, the type of coaches that come through. When you look at, there's a couple points, but I think of Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells is known as a hard-nosed coach. He's a disciplinarian. You're going to do things his way or you're going to get out. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that type of coach is brought in whenever the team is young and the team needs direction and there's no leadership on the team and it's just kind of just a wild, raucous show. They need somebody to rally the troops and get everybody in line. Yep. That's when you bring that coach in. And Ron Rivera may not have been on the Bill Parcells level of, cut people at the smallest instance if they do something out of line, but he was the guy to lead the troops. He was the guy to build up the character. He was the guy to help go through that transition. But then once you get leaders on the team that can handle that and that can carry that torch, Chase Young, Terry McLaurin, when you have those guys, John Allen, then you no longer need that coach to kind of hover over and monitor and make sure things are still going on that way. Yeah, you can bring in somebody that's young, that's going to have a new philosophy that interacts well with the players. I mean, if you go and look around, look in Miami. Aside from the injuries and the medical side of things, bringing in Mike McDaniel, fresh play caller. He's got an energy to him. Resonates well with the players. I mean, you can say what you say. He's helped turn Tua Tagovailoa around, performance-wise, before the injury. So, I mean, that could be the type of shift. Leave Ron in the building. I do think you need to keep him in the building. You owe him that much. He's done a lot for the organization in his short time. More for the organization that doesn't find its way onto the field. So absolutely keep him around.
Yeah, and the one of the positives that was talked about with Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio was that they were former players. Well, at this point, they're former players years and years ago. The game has changed, and they just have not completely adapted to what you're looking for. I think it wouldn't hurt to have a young influence, a young spice to things. I mean, we see all these guys. You mentioned McDaniel, McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur, all these young offensive minds. I think that's the way that you need to go. I think you need to find the next. I think you need to really use the rest of this year to find the next offensive mind, the next offensive guru that's going to take you to the next level, because I really believe that the talent is there, but I think that they're being mismanaged. And I think that, it could be as simple, I say as simple, but as simple as getting a new voice in there, a couple of new voices to lead both offense and defense. And you got to catch up with the times, because you're kind of getting left in the dust. And that's not just like a metaphor. You're literally being left in the dust. You have one of the worst records in the NFL, and you got to do something to change it.
All truth. I mean, there's nothing that is false with what you said. I mean, you look at some of the names. I mean, Kellen Moore, he's down there in Dallas. He's probably just going to be in succession. Follow that same. He's not leaving Dallas.
Right.
He's not leaving
He's
Dallas.
got a good spot there. Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry kind of has a way of doing things, but he's not leaving Dallas. He's going to be there. He's going to be the next head coach. Nick Sirianni in Philly, young head coach. Brian Dable, he's not the youngest, but he's definitely. You can tell he's been great with what he's done on offense. He does a great job of getting the most out of his players. So,
I think you got to treat it like a lot of these other teams have treated it. You go look at the most successful coaches out there and grab one of their guys, grab one of their assistants, grab one of their coordinators, and make something happen. I've seen some discussion about DeMeco Ryans, and I think he's a fantastic coach. My only fear is that you bring in a defensive mind who's probably going to bring in a young offensive coordinator. And then he's going to get poached in a couple of years. I mean, you can't be afraid like that, but I'm just nervous if you don't get an offensive guy, your coordinator that you bring in for the offense could later on be poached again, like we've seen so many times in Washington. Is that a fair fear, or is that just kind of my negativity kind of seeping in?
Well, see, it's negativity, but generally good coaches don't get poached from bad organizations. Or from bad teams. Like, they don't generally say, "Oh, this team is always at the worst team in the league, but their offensive coordinator, I really think he can lead my team." Right. You know what I'm saying? So if you bring in DeMeco Ryans, he brings in a young mind, and somebody feels the need to go and get them. It means they've been able to improve something or have some success in Washington. So I think it comes with the territory. You have to decide who do you want to lead your team, and just know that's going to come with it. Yeah. I mean, you think about it. That was. Let's see. Actually, sidebar. This is my anniversary, my first touchdown catch. Thank you very much. 10-10 in 2010. I mean, that staff had 10-10 and 10. Had Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. I don't think McDaniel got there yet, but had LaFleur. So three of the four guys that are coaching now were on that staff. It took them a little while to finally get to some head coaching positions, but it's out there. It's time for a new voice, and I think you have to have a reasonable timeline too. Yeah. A reasonable timeline to success. I think that people get caught up on this. Oh, we got to do it in 3 years. We got to do it next year. I've been beating the drum of saying this team was never one player away. Yeah, it was never just, hey, if we get a quarterback, then we're going to go to here. No, it's never been. The team has not been in that position for a while. It really has. Now you can say there are some positions that, okay, D-line set. Wide receiver, probably pretty set. You can ride quarterback for a while. Running back, still some you need to see some more tape, but you got to think you have pretty strong, going to have a pretty solid running back room for a while. The big two positions to pay attention to now, secondary and linebacker. Secondary and linebacker.
Yep. And yesterday it looked like William Jackson. I think I saw that maybe he said he had a back injury, but I thought I was listening on the broadcast that the commander said there were no injuries. For whatever reason, William Jackson did not play a whole lot yesterday. And, it is what it is. I don't think he's been playing very well. I don't think anybody in the secondary has been playing super well, but they take him out of there. They have an okay day. They give up a couple of big plays that led to the Titans touchdowns. But yeah, you got some holes out there, and there are certainly some things that you need to take a look at. This season for the remainder of the season, but also moving forward, I think you're going to have to revamp some of that secondary and that linebacking core, no doubt.
Yeah, you got to find a difference maker, and I mean if you're going to understand and say, okay, well maybe all the top tier free agents aren't looking to go to Washington, fine, then improve the scouting department and then scout better. Yep, scout better. Like we got to get good somewhere. Good somewhere.
I keep going back to the Giants. I mean, do you think that people really wanted to go there? Probably not, but they're finding a way to do it. They're 4-1. Whether or not it's legit, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there are no more excuses. You're dealt the hand that you have. I mean, this is what you've got. You got to make the most of it. Everybody wishes they had another player or two, or could bring another guy back from injury, but that's just the way it is. And it's frustrating. The defense has not forced any turnovers. Their only turnover was the Derek Force interception to seal the Jacksonville win, and that is atrocious. They have 1 turnover. They're -7 in the turnover department, differential. They got to figure something out. And if it's coaching, if it's bringing moving guys around, I don't know what it is, but you got to do something, because even the worst quarterbacks, if you let them hold on to the ball, they'll pick you apart. So a lot of changes need to be happening pretty soon.
Yeah, I did not know that stat. That's an upsetting statistic.
Yeah.
For a defense to see, you don't want that at all. But
so a quick turnaround. They play the Bears on Thursday. You'd like to think that they can beat the Bears, but we'll get to our picks tomorrow. But I think the Bears open as like a 1-point favorite already. So Vegas is not showing you any love. Nobody is showing you any love. So it's up to you guys to go and turn it around. You got a quick turnaround. Let me ask you this, not just about Thursdays in general, but how good or bad does it feel knowing you've got a short week after a tough loss?
The short weeks are tough on your body, regardless, win or loss. The good thing about having the short week after the loss is that you can immediately turn the page.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit there and watch it on the news and then see it on, you don't have to let that stuff drag out for 3-4 days and people still asking you questions about last week. And you're like, bro, I'm on day 2 of install for Chicago now. Right. So having that quick turn is the best. I mean, we've 24-hour rule is always in effect, but this one here, you definitely get to rinse it out, spit it out real quick, be done with it, and let's just move forward, and focus on getting a win. Just getting back on the right track. I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the field. You got to play better ball all the way around. So short weeks are tough on the body, but it is good to just quickly get back to it.
All right, so let's take a look around the league. Been talking a lot about the Giants and got me thinking about a little segment here. I called it Real or No Deal. So I'm going to ask you, AAA, and I'll answer as well. Do we think this team is real or no deal? So let's start with those Giants. They are 4-1. Pretty impressive what Brian Daboll is doing. I tweeted out yesterday, I would like this team so much if they weren't the Giants. If they were any other team other than the NFC East, I would love to root for this team. I think Saquon Barkley is a beast. Daniel Jones is playing okay enough, like the coach. But the Giants, 4-1, do you think they're real or no deal?
I think after this win, they are really showing they are the real deal.
All right.
When you go overseas, beat Aaron Rodgers, plus you're going without 2 weeks in a row. You've been decimated by injuries. One at receiver, guys don't even make the trip. And then the previous week, your quarterbacks go out in the middle of the game. And then you just say, hey, we're going to just hike it to 26 and then let him run it, and then still have success. Those guys are good. I mean, it's that coaching staff getting the most out of those players. Saquon's back, like you said. And he's unleashed something in Daniel Jones. And I know earlier in the year, I gotta point out, Coach JB had given out his quarterback rankings. This was like way back in like March or something. And he had Daniel Jones at like 5, was it like 2 or 5? He was like top 5.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, what are you talking about? I don't agree with it still.
No.
He ain't top 5, but he's definitely playing a lot better than anybody anticipated. So, if you had to rank it in the division, he'd definitely be not last.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And Cooper Rush is probably 3rd. So, hey.
Well, I'm going to be a bit of a hater. I'm going to say no deal. And part of it is not their fault. I think that they're in a tough division. I think the Cowboys and Eagles are 2 of the best teams in the league, and they just so happen to be in the same division. The Giants have the Ravens coming up. Then they have 2 road games, albeit against the Jaguars and Seahawks, and then the Texans and Lions. I mean, they could still have a pretty solid record, but I just think when it gets into division play, they're going to get knocked around a little bit. We already saw them lose to Dallas. I just think that they're in too tough of a situation. And it kind of, for me, goes back to Daniel Jones. I'm not really ever impressed with him. I think he's doing a good job of taking what is there and letting Saquon do the heavy lifting. But I think eventually some of those good teams will figure that out and as much as they can take Saquon away. And I think that Daniel Jones just doesn't have it to win you meaningful games. So I think it's a good start. But I don't think at the end of the day that they're going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to be right on the cusp, albeit way better than I expected it to be in year one for Brian Daboll. All right, so let's stick with the NFC. The team that the Giants beat yesterday in London, the Green Bay Packers. They are 3-2 on the season. Thought they were going to run away with that one yesterday. Aaron Rodgers just never seems to be able to put a team away. But what are you thinking? Are they real or no deal, the Cheeseheads?
That one's a coin toss. It's 1 week. I mean, 1 week you're like, yeah, this is it. They're going to blow them out,
Yep.
and then they struggle. I'm going to say no deal. You have almost the opposite situation as Daniel Jones. There's a quarterback who's more than capable of winning some games in tight situations. He just doesn't have the supporting cast anymore. That he could just easily rely on Devontae Adams to get open at any moment and make a big play to him. I mean, he's still learning these young receivers. Sure, there's Randall Cobb there, but there's just something not right. I think it's the receivers aren't really, helping out, and they're probably forcing some things. They got some good running backs they could turn and hand the ball off to, but I don't think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, I'm going to say no deal as well. I think that there's still something off. It seems like there are too many missed throws that typically Devontae Adams, whether it was the same being on the same timing as Aaron Rodgers or whether it was just he's an incredible receiver, but Dubs and Lazard just don't have it quite yet. Watson hasn't kind of filled in yet. I just, no offense to Randall Cobb, but when he is your leading receiver, something's going on there. So I think that the timing is a little bit off. I think the NFC North right now is the Vikings to win. They continue to win football games. They're 4-1. The Packers have the Bills coming up after they face the Jets and Commanders. So, I just think that I don't think it's a knock on Aaron Rodgers. I just don't think the timing is there. And you mentioned those running backs. Aaron Rodgers isn't the kind of quarterback that wants to rely on his running backs. He's going to go down slinging, which we saw yesterday. I'm going to say no deal on the Packers. And I think even if they sneak into the playoffs, that they're going to be one and done, just because I think they're missing Devontae Adams more than they thought they ever would.
Man, I feel like Devontae's probably missing Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
I mean, weather's nice in Vegas, but golly.
Yeah, the Raiders finally got that win, but we'll see what happens tonight on Monday Night Football. But it doesn't look like it's going to get – I just don't see the Raiders doing a whole lot either if we're talking real or no deal. But let's stay in the AFC West there as we kind of transition a little bit over. Two more teams for this. In the AFC West, the LA Chargers, I can't figure them out. I thought the Browns were going to beat them yesterday. They hold on for a 2-point victory. They're 3-2, obviously in a tough division with the Chiefs. I would say the Broncos, but the Broncos don't look very good. Raiders don't look very good. So it could be a two-horse race in the AFC West. I'm going to say that they are the real deal, though. I think that Justin Herbert is still one of the best quarterbacks. I think he gets the job done. I think he's done a really good job without Keenan Allen, who is by far his best weapon. They finally started to lean on Austin Eckler, who is just a monster, both receiving and running the ball. Mike Williams could be a number one receiver on a bunch of different teams. I think that they could potentially challenge the Chiefs down the line. They lost a close one a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers as being a real team to worry about in the NFL.
I know. I like the Chargers. I like what they do. I like their social media team. They are very creative with what they post. Big fan of all the players that you listed. I just, there's something about it that I just don't, I feel like I can't believe it.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that's a no deal. I'm going to say it's a no deal, but I think they're very close.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what piece of the puzzle that they're missing, but I think they're very close. It's almost like they're almost like Buffalo, like 2.0, but like the second version, but you got to get Justin Herbert to make that switch. Once he starts making that switch a little bit, that team can go as high as they want to. I mean, very talented across the board. But I'm going to say no deal.
All right. And the final one I had to take a double take, but the New York Jets are 3-2. They let Miami hang around a little bit with Skylar Thompson, I think, at quarterback, filling in for Teddy Bridgewater. So the 3-2 New York Jets, they're in a tough division. I don't know that Buffalo is going to get caught in that division, but what do we think about Robert Saleh and those Jets?
I think he's doing a hell of a job with that team. 3-2 is a great position to be. Miami's got their issues going on right now, so that flame kind of quickly fizzled.
Yeah, they're 3-2 as well, and I don't know about quarterback health or when Tua would be back, but
yeah, they're not. They can't rush anything. They can't. They can't. I mean, and they shouldn't.
The whole world's watching too.
Yes, now. Right. Like they can't. They just cannot take the chance. So I don't see Miami really doing too much else throughout the rest of the year. I'm going to say no deal, but it's a similar. They're close. They're really close. This is starting to be a pretty exciting team, but they're not ready just yet.
Yeah, I still don't know what to make of Zach Wilson. I know it's only his second year. Been a little bit injury prone. I do like those two running backs, though, Michael Carter and Breece Hall. I think they could have a really nice 1-2 punch. I would think that they would want to kind of lean on those two guys, similar to what the Giants have been doing and relying on their rushing game. But yeah, I just don't think that they're there yet. I think that they beat a beat up Miami team yesterday, but I think that they're still going to struggle with some of those tougher AFC teams. So no deal for me on them as well, but I like what they're doing. Could see them being making some noise down the road. All right, so that's real or no deal. We'll maybe take a look at this again, maybe about halfway through the season, see if some of these teams are still legit or not. So
absolutely, because I would tell you this. I mean, just the way that the season is sitting, there's a lot where you're just like, I didn't see that. Didn't see that coming.
No.
Some teams started slow, and now they're starting to kind of get their stride back. And I mean, Justin Tucker is just automatic.
Unbelievable.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, even like a team like the Lions, we've seen them put up points, but they're sitting at 1-4. They were kind of America's sweetheart from the Hard Knocks, and now they've hit hard times.
Yeah, I mean, I guess their on-field performance is better than what people expected. They're fighting. They're in games. They just have to find a way to get some stops.
Yep.
They put up points, but they give up points, and that's usually a bad combination. I was way wrong on them. My bad.
Yeah, no, I thought that they were going to start stringing some stuff together, but yeah, they've hit some injuries too. They lost Swift for a few games, and Amon-Ra was out for a little bit. But yeah, it is crazy. It's a week-to-week league. You look at one team, you think they're down and out, and then they get a big win, and it comes out of nowhere sometimes.
I saw a tweet that was put up by a good friend of mine, Greg Camarillo. So shout out to Catch Camarillo.
We got to get him on. You mentioned him maybe like at least in 5 different episodes.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. We were in Miami together. But either way, he had posted. He was like, I think there were like 9 new quarterbacks that had changed teams. I think he said like none of them have a winning record. Right And he was saying it's very difficult to adjust to a new offense and to a new scheme in a year. And he highlighted it gives even more credibility to what Tom Brady did in his first season in Tampa. That is not easy. All right. Yeah. So all that talk about we got to get a quarterback, like it ain't gonna happen in the first year. Like, and even with Matt Stafford, that was a quarterback away, but that was like a little bit of a different mentality and a guy that would actually throw the ball deep.
Yeah. Well, I think that, my wife is a Spanish teacher, and I think you can have the smartest person in the world, but still you send someone who doesn't speak the language off to a foreign country, as smart as you can be, you're going to get by, no doubt about it, but you're not going to thrive in your first few months there. You're not going to thrive maybe in your first year there. And these guys are, as long as they've been in the league, everybody has different verbiage. And so it takes a second, and we're certainly seeing that. It's not as simple as, just plug and play. I don't think the NFL is built like that. It's 11 on 11 for a reason. You need all 11 guys pulling the same direction.
It's the truth. I mean, it's a beautiful thing whenever you have, I mean, you saw how automatic, Aaron Rodgers would be with Devontae Adams. He doesn't have that same pizzazz right now because those guys are new.
Right.
He's only had a summer to work with them. Even if they go and throw routes on air and they post it on Instagram and it looks pretty and cute, stuff gets different whenever you're inside the game.
You get hit.
Stuff changes, right?
Yeah.
So, it all takes some time. I mean, you look, okay, here's a comparison. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Those two are symbiotic.
Yep.
Those two are on the same page. All right.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins are getting to that point.
Yeah.
All right. He had a great year and now he's elevating himself. So
yeah. And it's the same way you put another stud receiver with them. They'll take a second, and it'll take a minute for them to get on the same page and get going. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And you kind of wonder if some of these teams who are kind of hitting some hiccups, if maybe later on in the year they do start to put it together. But right now, there are definitely some roller coaster weeks. It's up and down with some of these teams. So, hey, Commanders, go get a win on Thursday. Start stacking some wins together, and then maybe we'll see where you're at the middle of the season once Carson Wentz has had a solid 7 or 8 games under his belt. But we'll be back tomorrow to break down the Bears and the Commanders. Like we said, Thursday Night Football. So we're coming at you Monday and Tuesday. We'll do our picks. As always, brought to you by Bet Online. They help to bring the show every time, so we appreciate those guys. Remember to use our code BELIEVE, BLEAV, at betonline.ag, and you can always hear us on TuneIn as well. So a bunch of different ways to see us, watch us, all that good stuff.
Yes, indeed, y'all. So have a good one. Keep your head up. It's going to be all good, folks. Y'all be easy.
All right.